Amara never imagined that defending Keanu Reeves would change her life forever. Working the evening shift at Sonny's Diner in downtown San Francisco had always been predictable until that fateful night. The small diner, nestled between a bookstore and a vintage record shop, cast its warm neon glow onto the wet pavement. For Amara, a 29-year-old waitress with kind eyes and an easy smile, the diner was more than a workplace. It had been her sanctuary for the past 3 years. Regulars became family, and every coffee refill came with a side of conversation. That rainy Tuesday evening started like any other. Locals filled their favorite booths, and the smell of fresh coffee and apple pie filled the air. The bell above the door chimed, drawing Amara's attention. Her heart skipped a beat. Standing there, shaking raindrops from his dark coat, was none other than Keanu Reeves. Dressed simply in jeans and a black sweater, his longer hair damp from the rain, his presence was unmistakable. He quietly chose a corner booth away from the windows, though a few customers were already whispering excitedly behind their menus. Amara took a deep breath to steady herself. She'd seen all his movies, admired his kindness to fans, and read about his generous donations to children's hospitals. Now here he was in her diner, just another customer in need of service. "Good evening," she said, approaching his table with a warm smile. "What can I get for you tonight?" Keanu looked up, his eyes kind but tired. "Just coffee, Black," he replied, glancing at the dessert display. "And maybe a slice of apple pie." "Coming right up," Amara replied, proud that her voice didn't tremble as she walked back to the counter. She could feel the energy in the diner shift. Most customers tried to be subtle about their staring, but not Earl. Earl was a regular who'd been coming to Sonny's for 20 years, known for his strong opinions and even stronger coffee. Tonight, his weathered face twisted into a scowl as he watched Keanu. "Well, well," Earl announced loudly, standing up. "If it isn't Mr. Hollywood himself." He marched over to Keanu's table, ignoring Amara's worried look. "Must be nice living in your mansion while real folks struggle to get by." Keanu sipped his coffee calmly. "Everyone has their struggles," he said softly. "We're all just trying our best." But Earl wasn't finished. "I read about you online. All that money, and what do you do with it? Probably just buy fancy cars and private jets. Bet you've never worked a real day in your life." The diner fell silent. Amara's hands trembled as she set down the pie she was carrying. She'd read countless stories about Keanu's generosity, how he'd donated millions to hospitals, taken pay cuts so others could be hired, and quietly supported cancer research after his sister's battle with leukemia. "That's not true," Amara said, her voice stronger than she felt. "Keanu has donated millions to children's hospitals. He's helped fund cancer research. He even gave away most of his Matrix earnings to the special effects team." Earl turned to her, his face reddening. "Nobody asked you, girl. Since when do you defend millionaire movie stars?" "Since people spread lies about good people," Amara countered, her heart pounding. "He doesn't brag about his charity work. He doesn't do it for attention. He does it because he cares. And if you took 5 minutes to look up the truth instead of believing random gossip, you'd know that." The silence in the diner grew heavier. Keanu sat quietly, a mix of gratitude and concern in his eyes. Then Mr. Sullivan, the diner's owner, emerged from the kitchen, his face dark with anger. "Amara," he called sharply. "My office, now." Inside the cramped office, Mr. Sullivan didn't mince words. "You're fired. We don't argue with customers here, especially not regulars like Earl. Clear out your locker tonight." Amara felt like she'd been punched in the gut. "You're firing me for standing up to a bully? For telling the truth?" "I'm firing you for disrupting my business," he replied coldly. "Earl's been coming here for 20 years. I can't risk losing customers because you want to play hero to some actor." Amara walked out of the office with her head held high, though tears threatened to spill as she gathered her things. Keanu approached her quietly. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "You didn't have to defend me, but thank you. What you did took courage." She managed a small smile. "Sometimes the truth is worth standing up for." The next morning, Amara woke to several missed calls from an unknown number. When she finally answered, she nearly dropped her phone. "Mr. Reeves was impressed by your integrity last night," the caller explained. "We're producing a documentary series about everyday heroes, people who stand up for what's right even when it costs them something. We'd like to offer you a position as a research coordinator for the project. Amara could hardly breathe. Are you serious? Very. Mr. Reeves believes your insight into recognizing genuine kindness would be invaluable to our team. The position includes full benefits and relocation assistance if needed. Would you be interested? 2 hours later, Amara walked back into Sunny's diner, this time as a customer. The bell chimed as she entered, and every head turned. Earl sat at his usual spot, looking uncomfortable. Mr. Sullivan stood behind the counter, his face a mix of confusion and regret. Amara, he started, about last night. I came to return my uniform, she said calmly, placing the folded clothes on the counter. And to thank you. Thank me, he asked, bewildered. Yes, because if you hadn't fired me for doing the right thing, I wouldn't have been offered my dream job this morning. She smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. Sometimes losing something small opens the door to something bigger. The diner buzzed with whispers as she explained her new position. Earl shifted uncomfortably on his stool, avoiding her eyes. Before leaving, Amara addressed the room. It's easy to judge people, especially those in the spotlight. But kindness matters whether you're famous or not. And standing up for what's right matters even more. In the months that followed, Amara poured her heart into her new role. The documentary series highlighted everyday heroes, teachers buying supplies for their students, neighbors helping elderly residents during storms, teenagers standing up to bullies. Each story reminded her of that rainy night in the diner. 1 year later, at the series premiere, Amara sat in a crowded theater watching ordinary people share extraordinary stories of courage and kindness. Keanu had insisted she be credited as a co-producer, though she protested that she didn't deserve it. You inspired this, he told her. Sometimes one person's courage can start a chain reaction of kindness. You proved that. Looking back, Amara realized losing her job at Sunny's wasn't the end she'd feared. It was the beginning of something far more meaningful. That rainy night taught her that standing up for what's right might cost you something small, but the reward could be greater than you ever imagined. Sometimes the biggest changes in life come from the smallest moments of courage, and sometimes defending someone else's honor leads you right where you're meant to be.